Good. Okay, super. Good evening, everybody, and we are delighted to have you all here, and especially when it's been such a fabulous day, and I'm sure a lot of you wanted to get out for a walk this evening. But you know what? You will be so delighted that you didn't, because beside me here, I have Danielle Serpico. Some of you might have met her before, so some of our oldies that would have trained with us back in pandemic COVID times. Danielle would have been in a few times into the Bloom Rooms to have a chat, so you might recognize her from that. I know Danielle many years. She has been my coach, she's been my friend, she has been my lifesaver. And I don't mean that in any light way or not. But anyway, Danielle, so before I even start here, what is Danielle? She is a journalist, an author of top-selling books. She is a mind coach. She's a communication expert. She's an NLP trainer. She's a hypnotist. So watch yourselves. But she is just a phenomenal person who is here tonight to help you guys with your language and the language, and me as well, the language that we use when we're talking to our customers. Danielle, we are delighted to have you here.
So excited. Isn't she amazing? Isn't it wonderful to be introduced like that? Yeah, and by Deirdre, an amazing woman like her. So that's really great. So yeah, I've known Deirdre and Jeanette for a long time now, and we were running late because I was picking her brain. They're incredible, aren't they? They're just phenomenal. So yeah, so it's all learning. So I'm very delighted to be here with you guys. I'm going to attempt in a moment to share my screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk really in-depthly. And I want to make sure that I give you guys absolute gold when it comes to how you can get the sales. Would you like to know more of that? And I'd love you to say hello in the chat and let me know a little bit about yourself, where you're watching from, and what would you most like to get from this, like, let's say the next half an hour, 40 minutes. What would you really like to know? What would you really like to know? What would you really like to learn? What is it that would make a huge difference in your business, in your sales, maybe in your life in general? So I'd love to hear a little bit about you.
So before you go on, Danielle, I'm actually going to unpin myself off screen so that I'm not going to be in the face of the recording. Guys, you're welcome to leave your cameras on and off. I would ask that you mute yourself and try and keep on mute until we open up at the end of the session, because you're going to do a Q&A, aren't you, Danielle?
I am. I'm going to do a Q&A, so you can keep me on time a little bit. Maybe give me a reminder in half an hour so I can allow a little bit of time for you guys to ask me some questions.
Perfect. Okay, I'll come in a little while and I'll tell you to stop talking.
Fabulous. Okay, awesome. So, I like the questions. I really like the questions. Learn to be confident in myself and sales. And that is amazing because there is obviously a direct link between that. Do you use ChatGPT to prompts to help you create captions? And if you do, what are some prompts you would suggest we use to help? Oh, fabulous. Okay, keep that question. Repeat that question at the end. That's fabulous. Confidence. Okay, that's very interesting. Interesting that you are asking for confidence. Okay, let's get to it because I never do this, but as I was saying to Deirdre, I did this particularly for Jeanette and Deirdre, that I actually prepared a presentation. I never prepare a presentation, but I thought I would be very professional here and really kind of be specific to you guys, to florists. Are you all florists or budding florists? Put it in the chat. And I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. And let's see if I can get this to work correctly. I have to enlarge that. So I think that should be right. Let me see if I can move it over here. And if I move it over here, can everybody still see my screen? I think that's correct, isn't it? So, okay, awesome stuff. And that means I can still see the chat. Where's the chat now? I've lost the chat now. I want to see the chat before I start. Oh, I'm putting you guys into the chat. There's the chat. Okay, fabulous. Okay, so as Deirdre said, just a little bit about me, really quickly. What I really want you to understand is some of you are saying that you want more confidence, etc. I've always been a businesswoman. I've been in business for all my life. And at 19 years of age, I opened my first restaurant. Fast forward 17 years, and I ended up going bust in the crash of the Celtic Tiger. And I lost 3 restaurants and a gift shop. I had a gift shop and 3 restaurants for 17 years. And I went on to fight with the banks for about 7 years. And in 2016 or so, I handed back my house and I went bankrupt and I was broke and lost everything, absolutely everything. Lost my home, lost my car, lost every penny in my bank account. They took my 20 grand I had in the government savings scheme. They took absolutely everything. I had nothing left and I was at rock bottom. 4 years after that, I'd rebought my own home with cash. Right, 4 years later, and I had most of all, I'd rebuilt my self confidence and my self worth. Now, and I built a 6-figure business. Now, I'm telling you that because the key thing that I did there was I changed my communication. I changed how I spoke to myself and how I spoke to others. And that had an effect. And your communication, your words have power. So I just wanted to kind of like, just for those who maybe haven't heard my story, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background into who and why I talk about words and language and communication a lot. Most of all, I had no intention. I had no intention to become a coach. I had no intention to be doing this type of work. But the reason why I want to explain this is your words are so powerful. So whether it's for your own confidence, when I hit rock bottom, I was not confident. I had no self-worth. So, and I will talk a little touch on that at the end as well about how our self-worth is directly related to how much money we can make, how much we can hold. Our success in our life is directly related to how we feel about ourselves. Does that kind of make sense? Right? So let's get down to the good stuff, just to give you a bit of background as to why I talk about what I talk about. And I do hope that that is useful for you to know the context. I'm just going to, oh, I may mess that up now. How do I do that? Go back to present. Oh, now it's even worse. Okay, hold on one second. Is that somewhat better? There we go. Oh, that's nearly correct. Okay, does that give you a little bit of context as to what so you have a little bit of background information about me. Okay, awesome. So, and most of all, more importantly than making money, more importantly than anything like that, I actually kind of learned to appreciate myself and value myself, and probably not in an arrogant way, but I actually learned how to kind of respect myself and love myself probably for the first time in my life. Even though I'd been a grafter and a doer, there's a very big difference between doing stuff and getting things done and being a survivor. Maybe you can relate to that, to working hard, but really underneath it, you kind of actually feel unworthy. You feel like you've imposter syndrome. You feel like you're kind of wearing a mask and you're not really doing all the stuff. So, okay, so let's get to it. How do we actually get the sale and have them coming back every single time? So I don't know why this is set like this, so my apologies. It's a bit slow, but maybe it builds the momentum. So most florists, by the way, are you all florists or are you practicing florists? You are all already current florists? Yes? And how are sales going in general? Sales going good? Are sales going so-so? Are sales going terribly? Do you get the sale every time? I'd love to know. I'd love to hear a little bit in the comments in the chat. Deirdre, could you send me a link to this recording? Okay, awesome. So most of us think that we're selling something like, a thing, like a bouquet of flowers, a service, a gift, whatever that might be. But really and truly, what I really learned is that what we're actually selling is an experience. It's always an experience. It's always a feeling. The subconscious mind, and I'm going to talk about this, 7% is your conscious mind, 93% is your subconscious. Everything that I've done in the past, number of years since I was at that rock bottom to now has been based on me focusing on learning and understanding how my subconscious works and how everybody else's subconscious works, because ultimately that is the part that makes decisions. It's not your conscious mind. It's not the logical mind. It is our subconscious. If people bought because of logic, we'd never do anything that was bad for us, would we? We'd never, overeat, overdrink. We'd never smoke. We'd never do anything unhealthy. We'd never overspend. We wouldn't buy frivolous things because we ultimately do things that we want, and we buy based on emotion. Not emotion and desire and those good feelings that come up. We don't buy based on logic. We don't really even buy based on price, do we? Right? So that is what I really, really want to first kind of get you to really kind of sit with and contemplate with. We actually buy feelings. We actually buy an experience. So what I want you to do is I want to give you a little of an example, like an example of how this might work. So let's kind of imagine a scenario. Let's imagine a scenario where maybe what day is it today? It's a Thursday. It's a sunny Thursday, beautiful sunny Thursday. And a woman called Emma walks into your flower shop, right? She comes in and she's looking for some flowers for her sister's birthday. And her sister is someone who's been through a tough year. So this is the scene. I've done a lot of script writing as well. I'm an author and I love writing. And this is like, let's imagine this is a film. This is the scene in the film. So we're going to look at this film from a couple of different sides. We're going to look at this now first from the florist side. So let's say we've got Joanne is the florist, and she's standing behind the counter and she sees Emma walk in. And she smiles. She's nice and friendly and she's doing the thing, as I used to call it. I was in the restaurant business, so I do understand customer service for 17 years. So she does the thing, as I call it, right? She goes, hi, hello, how are you? Can I help you? And Emma hesitates and she says something like, yes, please, thanks. I'm looking for flowers for my sister's birthday. And Joanne is all enthusiastic and she says, sure, we've got some lovely different flowers, right? We've got some pre-made lovely bouquets over here, right? And this one is €35 and this one is 50. And we also have roses, or we have lilies, or we have, I don't know, I'm not great at flowers. We have some seasonal flowers that are in stock. And what's your preference? What do you like most? And Emma looks slightly unsure, and she's looking at all the different stuff. And maybe she says something like, I'm not really sure. I want something special, but not too much. And Joanne, eager and to help, replies like something like, you could go with like roses, right? They're always a winner, right? So, and Emma maybe nods a little bit, but she seems slightly disconnected. Now, let's freeze frame that first scenario. What do you think might be happening here in this first scenario? What do you think might be happening subconsciously? What do you think might be happening in Emma's head, in her mind? I'd love you to put that in the chat. What do you think could be good or not so good about that scenario so far? Right? Thank you for the comments. Step aside, what a story. I'm only starting my journey in floristry with a little confidence. Awesome. We're going to boost your confidence now. Yeah. Hello from Dublin. Currently training to be a florist. Want to learn how to communicate with customers to get the sales and build my confidence. Awesome. Maybe Emma is thinking, I don't want something that's good for everyone. Stacey's in the house. Stacey's obviously doing the selling. Okay, I love it. Okay. It's not personal enough, needs to build rapport. Absolutely. Emma is getting overwhelmed with the choices available. Absolutely. All of those answers. Absolutely. You've got it. So why doesn't this work? Right? Remember that 93% of our decisions are made subconsciously. Our subconscious. It's down to what we're feeling, right? I want you to remember that. Now, the number one thing that the subconscious mind loves is, does anyone know what is the number one thing that the subconscious mind loves? What is the number one thing that the subconscious mind loves? Who's going to be first to put that in the chat? You've got to move your fingers. Quick, we've got loads to get through here. Awesome, first one in. Stacey's in the house again. Okay, awesome. We've got to give her a prize. Okay, safety. Exactly. Absolutely. Safety. That is the number one thing that the subconscious mind loves, right? It loves feeling of safety, trust, and certainty. So these are really, really important things. This is something that I was talking about at Social Media Fest when Deirdre was saying, I was talking to Jeanette. We have to create a feeling of safety, trust, and certainty with our potential clients, or they're not going to want to buy from us. Okay, and they're not going to want to come back. So what's happening subconsciously here is Joanne, the florist, is probably jumping too quickly straight into logic, to pricing, to the product. She's jumping too quick, too fast into the price and the product. Okay. And the subconscious is not engaged yet, is not emotionally engaged yet. The brain is still in comparison mode, not in connection mode. Does that make sense? So there's no emotion-based questions. No emotion-based questions were asked. Joanne did not ask any emotion-based questions. She didn't ask the client something like, what does she really want her sister to feel? And Emma is immediately feeling a pressure, right, to decide. And these kind of open-ended questions are triggering in her more stress and indecision, right? Plus, there's no, what we call in hypnosis and NLP terms, there's no future pacing. So that means that Emma cannot yet see the moment that her sister receives the flowers. We haven't put that into her head. We haven't helped her to visualize the end result. And that is key. Really, really key to selling. Because very simply, because I know, I want to keep this really not too much on the subconscious, but the subconscious does not know the difference between what's real or imagined. So when we bring somebody to the end result where they feel amazing, like after having given her sister the flowers, then what we've also created is loss bias. Because once we have something that we believe is ours, we want it back. So once we create that vision, that story in her head that she's given her sister these flowers, she wants to recreate that. It's created an emotional connection. So Joanne didn't do any of those four things. She jumped straight in. She didn't ask any emotion-based questions. She caused Emma to feel under pressure to decide logically, and Joanne did not create a future. She did not use future pacing, as we call it, okay, or in simple terms, visualization, right? So from the client's perspective now remember, we're looking at the two sides. From the client side now, Emma, remember, came in feeling a bit emotional, right? Remember that? So her sister maybe has gone through a tough time. Maybe your sister's gone through a breakup, something like that. And it's her birthday, but she and her sister wants to really feel how loved she is and supported she is. So she wanted something really, really thoughtful, right? But not something generic. I think one of you guys was touching on that. So when she saw the pre-made bouquets, maybe her heart sank a little bit. Maybe they were beautiful, maybe they were pretty, but they felt not special enough, not unique enough to her and her sister. So they felt, maybe she felt that she wasn't being seen. And I know this sounds maybe possibly a little bit fluffy for selling a bouquet of flowers, But like selling anything, we all ultimately want to feel seen and heard. And if we go into a shop, because believe me, I've had it happen, if we feel we're not really seen, and I don't mean by someone running up to you and saying, oh, how can I help you? But if we don't really feel seen, that can even trigger us. That can make us feel, no, I don't like this shop, and walk out of it, right? So we ultimately one of our primary needs is to feel seen and to feel heard. And Emma did not, that's what I called her, Emma. Emma did not feel either of those yet. So she didn't feel seen, she didn't feel heard, and she didn't really know what to ask for, right? So, and she didn't feel guided. She just felt sold to. So maybe she bought it. She bought let's say she left with the 35 euro bouquet, but it felt more like checking a box than making a memory, right? And she left. She doesn't remember the name of the shop, and she didn't go back. So does that make sense? So what went wrong? The missed moment. Emma walks in, she buys a bouquet for her sister. The florist immediately talks about the prices and flower types. There's no emotional connection, no guidance. Emma feels unsure. She buys something but doesn't come back. Why? Because there's no emotional connection, no subconscious engagement. So the mistakes here are jumping in too soon with price points, with prices and options too soon. That is one of the biggest mistakes that most people make in sales. The biggest mistake that I see people make day in, day out in sales is they jump in too quick to sell. This is a huge no-no because that's triggering logic instead of emotion. So jumping in too quick with the price and options triggers logic thinking, not emotion-based thinking. So instead, what you do is you start with emotion-based questions. Like, what would you like your sister to feel? What is it that you really want to convey in this bouquet of flowers? Does that make sense? So there's no open-ended exploration. There's no, we're just leaving the client unsure by asking, like, which bouquet do you want? So maybe instead you could say something like, tell me a little bit about your sister. So you get a feel of her sister. Now she really feels, now we're connecting. Maybe she tells your sister, well, my sister loves really simple things. Like my stepdaughter is getting married and she wants a wildflower bouquet. She doesn't want, red, bright flowers. Like I had red roses at my wedding. I'm divorced now, but anyway. I had a bouquet of red roses, where she wants, wildflower. So totally different feel. So asking something like, tell me more about her is such a lovely question, right? So you want to be really focusing on future pacing, creating the emotion. You want to get the client visualizing the outcome. Once you get the client visualizing the outcome, they're going to buy from you 100%. That's guaranteed. And obviously, I think someone touched on rapport. We want to build rapport, and there's a million ways that we can start building rapport. We know mirroring, matching, pacing. There's a lot of different ways. Very simply, validating people, acknowledging, repeating back, letting the person feel seen and heard by repeating back what they've said. So if someone comes into a store and says, I would really like to buy a bouquet of flowers that kind of matches my sister's personality, who's, she's vibrant and vivacious, then you might say, well, I've got vibrant and vivacious flowers that are going to match your sister perfectly, right? So what could Joanne have said differently in this situation? Maybe she might have said something like, okay, tell me about your sister. What kind of energy, feeling do you want to bring into this to her? What do you want do you want something that's thoughtful? Do you want something that's uplifting? What kind of a feel do you want? you know, and then you could also add words such as imagine. Imagine is the most powerful word that you can possibly use. The word imagine is powerful. And actually, let's just simply imagine. Those 4 words are really powerful put together into a sentence. So you might say something like, let's just simply imagine it's, you know, it's your sister has got the flowers. You've brought them to her. How will she be feeling? What will the flowers, would you, what kind of flowers would you imagine that would give her the feeling that you desire? Right? So this works again because we're using emotion first and the subconscious then feels safe. We're future pacing. And then the brain starts experiencing this outcome as if it's happening now. Okay? We're mirroring language that, you know, mirrors the client's emotional feelings and goals. Okay? That builds rapport. Okay? And we're kind of ultimately reframing the bouquet as a message rather than just a bouquet of flowers. Okay, so I think I have this probably here. Yeah, so that's that one there. So from the florist perspective, what might she say? Joanne comes along, she looks up from her desk, the till, the workplace, and she smiles and she says, "Hi, welcome. What brings you in today?" And Emma might say something like, "You know, I'm looking for something for my sister's birthday. I'm not exactly sure what though." And Joanne might lean in and say something like, "Okay, that's lovely. Can I ask what's your sister like? You know, or what kind of vibe do you want to bring to her day?" And Emma might then say, because she's already feeling heard, "Okay, well, she's had a rough year. She's had a tough time. I just want her to feel special. I want her to feel seen." And then the florist might say something like, "Okay, so sounds like you really want to give her something that, you know, some from the heart, you know, tell me, you know, just imagine what if you could picture her receiving these flowers. If you could picture her receiving these flowers, what do you want her to feel in that moment?" That's a powerful sentence, powerful question to ask. And then Anna is going to really feel a connection now, isn't she? And she's going to say, "I want her to feel loved. I want her to feel like someone's really thought about her." Now we've really built rapport, right? So then you might say something like, "Okay, right, I've got just the idea," right? You know, something that really helps her feel loved. And now we're kind of starting to feel that connection. You might show her flowers. You might ask her, "What do you feel?" Right? So, but that connection makes all the difference. So the key really is here is questions. Really, really questions, asking questions in advance. Okay? Really, really asking questions, starting with emotional language, building that trust, using emotional keywords like, you know, feel, what will she feel? You know, from the heart, you know, this will help her feel really seen, you know, future pacing those words, picture her receiving the flowers, you know, so you're co-creating this moment together ultimately. And in all of this, there's no mention of the price. There's no mention of the price until the emotional feeling is anchored in. That's key. That's one of the key points. So, started with emotional and future pace results, use metaphor. So we can use a lot of metaphors. I didn't really talk about that. So we could use metaphors like, for example, you could be talking about like the stem of a flower, how it symbolizes her strength. If once you find out qualities that you know of her by asking questions, then you can use those as metaphors when you're talking about the particular flowers that you guys probably know a lot more about than me. So the next thing I want to kind of talk about is this is kind of a little bit of an abbreviation of it. So always start with them. Always start with them. It's not about you. It's not about the sale. It's not about the price. It's always asking them. Use emotional words. Avoid the budget. Use future pacing. Okay, now we're going to talk about that a little bit more, reframing. Okay, and objections. So how do we handle, I'll think about it. Because this is probably a question that comes up a lot. I know it's a question that comes up a lot with people that always ask me this. It's a great question. So the key here is thinking doesn't get the sale, because thinking causes the brain to think that there's a problem. When someone says, I'll think about it, it's terrible, terrible, because the brain will automatically go to look for problems for the reason why you should not do something, because it wants to keep you always in the familiar, never doing anything different. So we want to reconnect them to the feeling. So a great question is to agree with them. A great way to answer, I'll think about it, is, okay, wonderful, great. Yes. What would you like to think about? People don't expect you to say that. What is it specifically that you want to think about? Okay, it's a great question to ask. And then they might say, well, and it means you can find out what exactly is the problem. You know, like, is it around the price? Is it, which probably never is, very rarely. Is it around the what is it? You just haven't connected with them. You want to get back into the connection, you know? So most people say, you know, we have lots of colors, you know, we have different options, but maybe go more into, okay, well, what would the person that you want? What kind of atmosphere or feeling is it? What is it specifically about the feeling that you have to think about? What is it specifically that you need to think about when it comes to how you want your sister or whoever it is to feel? Okay, so that is what is really, really key. So when most people hear, I'll think about it, most people shut down. Most people shut down, and they let the sale go, because again, that's down to our confidence and our self-worth. Okay, so asking somebody, which is not what most people get. Most people, 99% of in any sales situation, will say, oh, okay, sure, I'm here whenever you want to come back to me. Okay, you know, hopefully you'll see you soon. Most people say that. Not that many people say, of course, may I ask what you'd like to think over? You know, sometimes it helps to talk it through. Maybe I can help, you know. So that works because it kind of invites the person to keep the conversation going and actually to get more clarity on it. Okay, so if they still say, or if they say, oh no, I'll come back later, maybe you can say something like, you know, sure, absolutely, I want to make sure that you leave with something that feels exactly right. So can I ask you, when you picture giving this to them, what do you want them to feel? And now we brought them back in again. So you never object to it. You always agree. You always say, yes, absolutely, sure. So you might say something, if they're hesitating, if they're unsure, you might say something like, you know, yeah, honestly, I want you to go. You know, you've got to go with your gut. You know, I've seen how you lit up when you seen those particular flowers or those colors, you know. So you know, you deserve to have the time to think about this and decide what feels right for you. Now, I could talk about this for another year. There's particular tones, there's particular ways that you can use your words that are subliminally commanding. And when you say something like in the positive sense, like, sure, you know, you deserve to give yourself the time for you to decide what feels right for you right now. That's actually a subliminal hypnotic command to decide right now. Okay, now one of the key things, without giving you guys a whole lesson in hypnosis, one of the key things here is your conviction. One of the words that I was explaining again at Social Media Fest was the difference between if and when. This kind of, as we could say, a more generic synopsis of the power of conviction, of certainty. When someone comes into your shop, it's not like if you decide to come back, if you decide to buy them, it's when. So it's kind of like, certainly, sure, absolutely. I understand, sure. Think about it. I just curious so I can make sure that I can help and you leave with something really, really worthwhile. What is it specifically that you would like your sister or, you guys to feel at your wedding, exactly to feel, so that we can make sure that we get this right now for you. And when you're ready for this, it's here. And that in that there is a whole load of language patterns that are influential. But the most important thing I want you to remember there is when, is the word when. When is a presupposition. It symbolizes that it's not an if, it's when you decide to come back. And most of the time when you use that word, they'll just decide, sure, yeah, let's get them now. Sure, what are we waiting for? What are we thinking about? Okay. So that, because it builds their trust in you, their feeling of safety, because you're using a certain word and not an iffy word, literally. Does that make sense? So there's so many things that you can say. You can say, they might be about to go, and you might say something like, well, you can use loss bias, you can use urgency, and you can use all of those different psychological cues that I'm sure you guys know about. Like, this is one of our most loved flowers at the moment, and I'd hate for them to be gone later. Want me? Would you like me? Will I put one aside for you while you decide for when you come back? That's a powerful sentence to use, So it kind of adds urgency without too much pressure. And it kind of makes the customer also kind of feel somewhat looked after, right? So you probably also do things, maybe some of you might be already doing this, wrapping something up. Let me get this wrapped up for you while you're deciding. And if anything shifts, while you're kind of deciding this, you can let me know. Right? So that's a little bit pushier, but it can work. A lot of the time it can work, and it kind of, you're assuming the sale. I always talk about this. I talk about this a lot. You've got to assume the sale. You've got to assume the sale. You've got to assume that everyone walking into your shop is coming in to buy something. And it's an energetic thing. And the other thing I want to say is repeat back their words. Repeat back their words. I don't know if I'm actually going ahead of here in the slides here. Yeah, that was another one. Repeat back their words. So make them feel seen and heard by repeating back. People trust what sounds familiar. Okay. And their own language is the most influential. Now, again, I teach NLP. I don't know if any of you have heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, but in that we talk all about the way people speak, and there's visual, auditory, kinesthetic language. But ultimately it comes down to when someone says something like, I just want something very simple and elegant, then you repeat back the words. Absolutely, I've got it. Here's something simple and elegant. You can also go into the way they speak, something like, I really want, I really see my wedding as something that is, going to be bright and beautiful. From that sentence, we can tell that that person, the bride to be, is visualizing something. That means that in her world, that's how she communicates. So I would speak back to her in a visual sense. So I wouldn't say, for example, okay, so you want to feel really good on your wedding day. course she does, but she didn't say that. She didn't use feeling words. She used visual words. So she said, I really want to see the day going along and being really bright and beautiful. She used visual words. So we speak back the words that somebody is using. And that is the most powerful way to build rapport. So how to build repeat language? You guys probably know all this. Follow up. This isn't any sort of business. Follow up. Follow up, follow up. One of the things that we talk about in sales a lot is the money's in the follow up. Following up, following up, following up. Depending on how you're doing business in your social media and your marketing, following up. Building relationship, remembering specifics, like if you have obviously little things like if you have a data bank, if you have a computer to keep people's information, if you have little cards or loyalty things, so you remember their dates and events or birthdays, some little token, using personal touches like notes, whether it's through voice message, whether through its email, whether it's a card, all these things are going to really, really build your loyal client base. And finally, it's really about your belief. It's also your energy. It's about how you are when you're selling. Do you feel comfortable selling? Do you really feel comfortable selling? Or do you feel like you're forcing somebody? If you feel like you're forcing somebody, there's two things wrong. One, you've got to reframe that you're giving people an experience. You're giving people a memory. You're giving people an opportunity to have a moment, right? And two, you've got to do the inner work. Because if we feel uncomfortable with selling something, our services, our products, it's down to our confidence and self-worth. Okay. Most of all, to sell like a pro, yeah, sales equals connection, not convincing. It's not about convincing anyone. It's about connection and emotional connection. And people want to feel seen and heard. And remember that you're a memory maker, not just a florist. Yeah. So I think that is it. I'm conscious of time. So I suppose what would be a good thing to do at this point is maybe open it up to some questions. If people have any questions here, I see some things in the chat here. What do you think? Will I answer some of these? I guess this might be a good thing to do. This last one, Stacey. Do you ever feel like you can see people too much? As in they don't want to be seen in the moment for any number of reasons. How do you respond to those that appear to be shying away, that don't like to have the focus on them so you can still engage and make them feel special? Oh, it's a great question. Well, I suppose, is this in regards to, you have to obviously, this is a skill. Unfortunately, when we're in business, we people skills, and reading people is one of the most valuable skills that we can have. So obviously it's relative to, is this again, this would be very different if this was a bride, for example, or they're coming in to buy something for somebody else. So I suppose that's the first context, I'm guessing. So if it's for somebody else, you don't have to really be asking them about themselves, but you're asking them about the client, about the person they're buying for, right? So that's not really an issue. So I suppose this problem would be more in the context of if it was for maybe a bride, would that be the case? If it's for them, I presume. So again, you ask questions and you kind of like, I would ask questions. I always ask questions. I mean, I'm a coach. I work with people in business all the time, and I ask questions. Like half, three quarters of a session with me would be me finding out information, asking questions, because I don't know how to answer correctly or help somebody unless I know really fully what that person's about. So when it comes to if it's for the person itself, so if it's for a bride, I would be asking questions. I mean, presumably if they're coming in and they're a bride to be, they probably have a fair good idea of what they want, wouldn't they? Or I guess you got to read them. I'm not really sure. Maybe you can give me the question in another context for me to be able to answer it better as well. It might help.
Danielle, I loved the when you talked earlier on about jumping in with the price, because that's actually a very common thing in a flower shop. It's like, how much do you want to spend?
Yeah.
Without, and I'm sure, I don't know if everyone else felt the same, but I could actually see Emma and Joanne in the shop, and I could see exactly when you were talking about it, I could visualize, and you can visualize the scenario, and you can actually put yourself in Emma's shoes, sort of saying, oh, you know, and I know probably feedback from, and I'd love to see it in the chat, is people are going to say, oh, well, I don't have time to spend that time with customers to get all of that information. But a lot of you guys are starting out in business. So first of all, you don't have that many customers. So you have got the time. And I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle, do you really have to do this work once with that customer?
So so again, it doesn't have to be, I mean, it doesn't have to be long drawn out. We're not doing a coaching session. We're not doing
Yeah.
a counseling therapy session with them in the shop. So, I mean, even in coaching, I mean, I do very quick change making, right? Very rapid. But there is always a there is always a process, but it doesn't have to be long-winded. So it might only take one or two questions. The key thing is just don't skip straight to the price before you've touched on emotion. So that
Mm.
might only take one question. It might only take, well, what would you like the person to feel? Or what do you want to feel holding
Yeah.
a bouquet of flowers? What do you really want to feel as you hold your bouquet of flowers? Maybe that'll be enough information
Yeah. Or
gathered.
I suppose as well, is there a flower that your sister really likes or really doesn't like, or a flower that a color? Because I know Jeanette wouldn't be, yellow flowers wouldn't be her thing at all. But I suppose asking those type of questions as well. And also, I suppose, is where do you think she's going to put the flowers? Are they going to be in her kitchen? Will they match her kitchen? Or are they going to be in her sitting room that maybe those type of questions?
So that does make them envision it. So yes, so if they can envision the flowers being in the sitting room or whatever, that's future pacing. That is future
Okay.
pacing. You're doing future pacing. The color is a very practical, obvious question because I like yellow flowers, for example. I know I had red roses at my wedding, but I don't know why. But anyway, like, anyway, we won't go there. But I would probably want yellow roses next time if I ever got married again, which I won't. But like, but so yellow flowers, if you ask me that question, yellow flowers is the first step. But then the next question, in my opinion, it definitely needs to be, what will that do? What will that color? What will that flower? What will a yellow flowers do for your sister? Or
Okay.
so there has to be an emotional attachment. There has to be. Now, sometimes you don't need to do that. Just someone wants to buy a bouquet and they're in and out, and the people, the guys running in, just give me a bunch of flowers and all the rest. But this is what we're talking about here is if somebody is indecisive.
Yeah.
If
And I think as well, if you want to get that bigger sale rather than the 35 € bouquet, it could be this is your opportunity to sell. And I definitely think, like I loved what you talked about. Guys, if anybody has questions, please, you can unmute yourself and ask them. Imagine. I love that word, particularly around weddings, because um, imagine the type of wedding that you want. Imagine what you want the flowers to look like. I just thought that's a really and what was it? Because I'm making notes when I was talking to you because these are work like I'm going to use them in our sales as well, because we're not selling, we're what you say, we're not selling, we're selling an emotion. Is that what it was? Yeah.
we're creating a memory.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
selling an experience. What I mean. We're creating a moment.
Yeah. Where you said, let's just simply imagine
Let's just simply imagine are the most powerful words that you could use, or every
yeah.
hypnotist's dream. They're very powerful
So
because
would you say to a wedding couple, let's just simply imagine you didn't have a budget. What do you envisage? Like, what do you?
I wouldn't even start with budget first.
Okay, right.
Okay, because people change their minds all the time. It happens all the time in every industry. People will say, "Oh, I have a budget," and then they go off somewhere else and they spend three times as much. And you go, "But they only told me, but they only had that amount of." You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's BS. It's not, we buy based on emotion. We don't buy based
Okay.
on logic. So I would never mention price.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mention price. Most people do it the opposite way. They say, okay, what's your budget?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Absolutely.
now
Yeah.
all we've done is activated the logical brain. We haven't activated the emotional brain. So let's start with emotion first, hook them in with emotion, and then the budget is going to rise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the complete opposite.
Okay. So, and again, and we have said to people about this, Zoom, that we reckon it's something you'll have to watch once or twice. You're not going to have to, because to try and take it all in. And you talked about confidence, and I do think confidence is, as somebody says, we're all born with confidence, and it's kicked out of us as we go through life. Um, and you talked about like working on yourself and stuff like that. Now I know that that's what you do, and you have mentor programs, and you have all of this, but for somebody starting out in this and wanting to, do build their own confidence for to be able to sell more, how can they be in touch with you without,
Yeah.
breaking the bank?
Yeah. So, like, I know it sounds as corny, but I really mean it. And thank you, Stacey. I appreciate the comment. It really is true. Like, Deirdre knows me. I'm, a, I'm I, I know I've been in business all my life, all my life. Brick and mortar, selling stuff all my life. But I know that the key to success in business and your life, and to have a life, is doing the inner work first. And your bank balance is only going to rise with the level of your self-worth. As corny as that sounds, it's true. And most people struggle with sales because of lack of self-worth. And it is something that we all really want to address, because we deserve more, right? And it's all based on past programming. So I do have, because as I said, I never do presentations.
Do very well.
I actually never do. I did this specifically for Jeanette. Okay. So I did actually decide to give you guys a little bundle. Okay. It's really, really a special bundle. It's very, very good. It is not going to break the bank. Okay. But this is to really, in my humble opinion, from someone who's gone from rock bottom to really doing well, but most of all, feeling content. Okay. Feeling content in herself. That's the most important thing. And I'm very comfortable with selling because it's a service. It's I'm giving from the heart. I have something really lovely. I have a bundle for you guys, which is 97 euros, right? But this is a bundle that's going to bring you to a level of one, understanding more of what we've spoken about. So I have 4 masterclasses that are all about communication, subliminal communication. One is for how you speak to yourself. The first one is how you speak to yourself. It's called the deeper art of communication. It's 4 masterclasses that you get to keep forever. They're in your own course portal, an evergreen course, and you get to keep them forever. The first one is all about how you speak to yourself and the effect that has. The second one is how you speak to others, those that you love, and those in your life that are close to you, and the effect that that has. The third one is how you speak to your current clients. And the fourth one is how you speak to potential clients to get people into your world. Okay, so those 4 masterclasses, I do sell those 4 masterclasses as an evergreen program for 222 euros. So I'm giving you that. Not only that, I'm also giving you, okay, my 7 subconscious triggers that make people say yes. This is a kind of an ebook that you get. And most of all, anyone who's near Dublin, or anybody that wants to come to near Dublin, or even if you're not in Dublin, I'm going to give you the recording of it, a live day with me in Dublin on the 17th of May. It's called the Master Your Mind Day. I'm going to share this here with you here. So it's
And
the
I have done that Master Your Mind Day twice in the last probably 10 years. And I'm hoping to do it again on the 17th of
you
May.
got to come on the 17th.
Yeah.
You got to
I'm
come.
not going to try. I'm going to be there.
Oh yeah, never use the word try. Remember, the try implies failure to your subconscious. So this is a bundle for 97 euros. It's going to actually shift you immediately. The deeper art of communication, you get that straight away. The 7 hidden triggers, you get straight away. The BBMM book, you'll get live in the day, or I can post it to you if you're further away. And the live in person day. If you can't come live, you can watch it. I might stream it as well. So all of that for €97 for you guys. This is what really shifts the needle. It is about obviously words, but it's so much more than that. Okay. If you really want to have success in your life and your business, I will help you do that from the inside out. So that is what I do. That is what my purpose is. That's what I've been doing since I've realized all of this and learned all of this. And I want to see people succeed. So I'd love you to come with me on the journey. That's it.
And yeah, that is a bargain, and I really do appreciate you sharing that with our community, because like I know what I've paid in the past.
Yeah, it's very good. Well, the live in person day on its own is €147 at the moment for the early bird.
Yeah.
It includes your meal and everything. So like it's actually
Yeah, it is. It's, and and I do think, because I'm writing the words down as you're speaking here today, and I have heard these in the past. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting, and assume the sale and assume. So like we assume they've already decided to book onto our courses when we got that phone call. We're not actually trying to sell them the course. We assume they're already there. So imagine working with flowers every day of the week and how wonderful that is. And you won't be lifting heavy buckets and
yeah. Exactly. So like it really is from the inside out. When you change
yeah.
language internally, I changed my language for myself first. And then it's like when you change that, you will speak naturally. It'll just come out of you. You speak naturally that way to clients and people around you.
Yeah.
It affects everything, your relationship.
Absolutely. Helene is asking, where in Dublin? It's Dublin
Oh,
City, isn't it?
it's in the City North Hotel. I think it's about 15 minutes north of the airport. I will give you obviously guys all the links to all of that. It's a full day from 9 to 6 p.m. on Saturday the 17th, a transformational day. You'll be in the room with me live. I will hypnotize you, mesmerize you, and otherwise, as I always say. But it'll be a great networking day as well. Meet other business owners. A really, really phenomenal day. Very transformational. I'd love you to see you there.
And Danielle will be, everyone that had signed up for this webinar, Danielle will be emailing you those details tomorrow of that and how you can book it. There obviously is the QR code there, but she will email you more details, and I will be emailing you the replay, that if you want to watch this replay. And just for anybody that's maybe watching it a little bit later than the 17th of May, Danielle, can they still get all that other stuff for €97?
Yes, I'm going to stop the share here actually, and I'm also going to give you, have I stopped it? No.
You have, yeah.
I'll also give the actual link in case people don't have a QR code thingy, whatever you call it, QR code scanner. But can they get it? What was your question? Can they get it?
So if somebody is watching this after the 17th of, or before, the May or whatever, can they still just book without the day and still get the rest of that for €97?
I can
Because without the day, it's still a bargain.
It's still a bargain. Well, I mean, the masterclasses are phenomenal.
And they absolutely are. Yeah.
And them on their own are like, they're incredible. Like they're absolutely like incredible. But I will also give you the recordings of everything as well. So it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Kathleen is asking, what is your website to get the info about life coaching? Thanks for the offer. So Danielle has just put a link in the comments there in the chat. And as I said, she will email you tomorrow. That's going to be her baby. And you can join her email list and see what other wonderful things that she has on offer. Danielle, I really, really, like, I have learned, and I only listened to you talking, 2 weeks ago, Social Media Fest, 3 weeks ago, was it? And I learned on that day as well. And I think every time I listen, I hear another word and I hear another word. I'm like, okay, I need to start using that word.
And wait, stop. Change the word need.
Okay, I am going to.
That's another word. Never use the word need, especially with your client. What you need is this. That's going to repel them. Use the word want.
Okay,
remember, people buy what they want, not what they need, not what they should have. They buy what they want.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. Listen, guys, thanks a million. We've gone a little bit over time, but we're not too bad. We've sort of stayed as much as we can. Thanks a million to everyone for tuning in. If you're watching on the replay, thanks a million for tuning in. Danielle, thank you so much for your time this evening. We really do appreciate it. And I look forward to the 17th of May. I will be there. I want to be there.
You do. You do.
Okay, bye everyone. Thanks a million.